Hi friends, welcome to this live stream session. My name's Jerome and I spend about an hour every week taking a look at Uno platform, what's new, debugging issues, taking a look at WinUI, that what we're going to be doing today, and answering questions. I see Jose is here. Boa tarde, Jose, if you're Portuguese. And so not much new since the last week, but we're going to be continuing taking a look at one of the issues that was open last week. That was about the WASM combo box that doesn't display anything with having selected values set when the items when setting the items through the item source. That's a long one, but we're going to take a look at how we can troubleshoot that issue and go further along and try to fix that one more precisely. Particularly taking a look at the WinUI sources and try maybe debug them in some ways and try to figure out why Uno has that specific behavior. So let's go back to the sources we had last week. So the behavior that we have currently, oh, that's a nice bug from Visual Studio. The issue that we have right now is the when selected item is pre-selected. So when we have a combo box and we have a set of items that are inside of the it's an array of strings. We don't want to have the selected index being changed and reset. And what we discovered last week is that when you set the selected index before the item source, regardless of the value that's being set in there, the item source will try to set the selected index, selected items that are associated to the selected index from the item source. But if it's not, then it will just ignore it and set null. So pretty much. And the interesting part is that on Uno's end, when we're setting the item source, regardless of the fact selected index is set, we're resetting it to zero, I think. So the first item, and we should not be doing this. We're trying to figure out why we're doing this in the first place, and try to get to blame the source and see why we got to that point, and see if we can improve that situation. Hey Vladimir, thanks for joining. We're taking a look at combo box and selected item. So I'm going to be opening the source for Uno using the test solution filter. So I need the cross-targeting override to be set to net 8. I need it also to be set to be opened through the unit test only solution filter. And we're going to see if we get past the issue that we had last week, which was that the symbols were not loaded properly. I think we changed a few things here and there, and we got it running. I think it was because of some targets that were not set properly. I think we had a few things like with the directory build props that was set to current net unit test. So we changed a few things to get to that point, and we can see that the combo box is available. Great. So what we need to find out is why the selected index changed is raised incorrectly and reset for whatever reason. And to do that, we put a breakpoint inside the selected index selection changed and try to figure out where that comes from. So we're going to debug the test and try to see where that comes from. I can see that the build is still up, but that's good. So that there's no need to go down further. So in the stack, we have the first selection that says added items. We have string 1. So the selection is set properly to the first item. That's interesting, but we know that for the second part, we're getting invoked a second time that says removed item string 1 for select and change, and it's caused by, I think we have a reset index if needed method here that removes that value for some reason. It's not clear exactly why. One thing that we can take a look at also is the fact that if we set let's say the value 2, which value do we get? Because we saw that in WinUI, when we set the value to 2, then the selected index 2, the selected value becomes the third item, so it's string 3 here. So we're going to try to see if we get the same result. So we get the build. So it's the first build that completes that is fully running, so it takes a bit of time, but should be faster. I wish I could resize that bar at the bottom. I don't think the Windows team has done anything like this recently. Aside from adding Copilot in there, I don't recall if there's something that allows to change the taskbar size. There's a way to put it on the left, but on Windows 10 there was a way to change the size of that thing, but now there isn't. If there's someone from the Windows team looking at this in the future, I hope you're working on that. Okay, so now we have executed that again, and oh, okay, so that's interesting. So that means that the selected value, the selected index is taken into account because we're setting the right value from the get-go, but we're resetting the value afterwards. So we're kind of doing the right thing, but then breaking it afterwards. So we're doing the right thing, but resetting it afterwards. We have the selected index changed. We're setting the selected index on next time change. So we have the uncoerced selected index. So that's interesting. Okay, so that's the uncoerced. We're setting the selected index to some value. That's interesting. So it's setting it to 2. But it looks like the coerced value has changed already. That's interesting. So we're getting to that location for the uncoerced value. And that's very interesting because we're setting the value here to 2, regardless of the fact that the coerced value has changed. So we're probably changing the coerced value to something else in between. So we getting to that point when that value is 2, and it becomes reset to -1 for some reason. Okay, great. So we know that we're changing that value, and we get to the point where we're having the third value selected, and then the second call is resetting it because we're into the method that's called reset index if needed. Okay, so we know that part of the behavior is right, but the other part is incorrect. So we need to figure out why that part is executed. So one of the things that we're doing to try to determine why that happened is to take a look at why is that code around, and particularly, is there a test that's associated to it? So if we have luck, maybe that will be available, and we can test the results. So we can see that there was a change by Martin in 2022. There was a change by Yuri also. That's set selected index a bit before during the year. Let's see, do we have some tests in that commit? We do as runtime test, but we also do as given selector. Well, that's not a very good change. We have a given flip view as a runtime test, which is a test that runs for all targets. That's good. And that test is doing what? That test is changing the selected index, setting the item source, but doesn't change anything with the item source. Doesn't manipulate the item source, the selected item prior to the first execution. So that's not it. We tend to think that we could take the flip view and put it inside a unit test, but if we can't do it other way, we'll do it different. We'll do it differently. So So we have that particular. So the summary says that we set the selected index to -1, if not already set to this value. This is needed to ensure the selector code does not clear the uncoerced value. Looks like we're trying to do something different there. So the item source changed. And we're doing it while trying to subscribe to current changed. And we're doing it only if the source is not a collection view. That's curious. That's curious because we should be able to not touch this, the subscription while we're setting the value, because we're currently setting it anyways. And we're trying to subscribe, and then we're doing a refresh, which reads the new item source and tries to do all sorts of things around it. We're also trying to do item pending selection. So item pending selection, that one is interesting. So it looks like we're having something that handles that specific case. And that, considering the name, means that while, so the name means that it's something that's coming from WinUI. Oh, I see Darren is here. Hey, Darren, thanks for joining. So can you explain the different purposes behind coerced and uncoerced values? So coerced and uncoerced values is actually quite interesting. This is not something that WinUI, if you're a user of WinUI, you can't manipulate it by yourself. This is something that will allow to do things like forcing a specific value to be something else. So let's say you have a range selector, like for instance, a slider, and you want that value to be between min and max. You will want to coerce that value to be between min and max, and then the tooling allows you to the dependency object tooling allows you to coerce the value to be in a very specific set of values. So this is used in slider, but this is also used by let's see. This is also used by, I think it's button, if I remember correctly, or not even, or it's probably control. So if we go take a look at control, for instance, it's probably going to be very interesting to see. So control manipulates that as part of is enabled, if I remember correctly. And there's something that is called suppress enabled. And what that does is that regardless of the fact that you've requested the control to be enabled, then the tooling will say, well, is enabled is not accepted. So when coerced is called by the dependency object, if it says that suppress is enabled, then regardless of the value that you're going to try to put inside of is enabled, it will be always false. So it's kind of a forcing a value to a specific set of values depending on all sorts of conditions. So is enabled is one, range is another, things like that. So the problem is that API is not available as part of UWP. It's something that you can do when you're doing WPF. The WPF has that particular callback that you can set. WinUI has it internally in C++, but it's not available to users of WinUI, unfortunately. That would be interesting to have, though. But that's not available yet. I see Gabriel is available, has joined as well. Thanks for joining. We'll take a look at the ComboBox and SelectedIndex. But good question, Darren. So in the scenario of ComboBox, it's preventing from assigning an index that's out of range from the item source. That may be true. that may be true, and we can actually go take a look at selected index and see what it's actually doing. So if we go to selected, oh, not that, selected index, selected item, no, we don't have that one. Selected index is there. Yep, there you go. Selected index. And does it have a course? Yes, it does. It does have a course. And the course of that particular one is saying if you try to set the value to something that is above the item count, you can't set it. It's actually going to fail. That's interesting. And if it's below the item count, or if no items exist, for what I can tell, then it sets it back to -1. So it's kind of a coercing and ensuring that the value for the selected index is the right one. It's likely that this piece of code specifically comes from WinUI. We could probably go take a look at what's implemented there. But if we can't get it to work, that's what we're going to try to do. So that's it. And so if we take a look again at the if we go back to our so we'll get the override here, ComboBox, we get it. So we get a pending item selection, which is actually quite interesting. So that would mean that if we try to do exactly what we had before, which is trying to reset if needed, maybe selected index is not quite right. Maybe we should say that if pending selection is null and that the selected index is different from -1, we could try to do that, because we're having a pending item selection because we're currently setting the item source, and we haven't materialized the fact that the selection has been set before but may not be valid. So let's try it again. Okay, so we can debug that again. And in the meantime, I can probably show you something. I don't know if I've cloned the WinUI repository on my machine here. Probably going to be doing that. What did I wanted to hide that. Okay, there you go. It's gone. WinUI, GitHub. And well, it really wants me to type something else. Okay, so to get to the sources of WinUI, you have to go and scroll to a specific branch. It's not super easy to find out. So let's, oh, there you go. So you have to search for WinUI 3 release 1.5 stable. Those are the public sources for WinUI. So that's where you can go to figure out what the Windows team is doing. And so far, I think that we have we're gonna have to clone this up locally because we don't have the right sources available here. So let's do this for now. It's probably going to be a bit big, but well, that's not too bad. Okay. And we're going to change the branch to the the 1.5. And we're going to take a look at what's inside. So I'm not going to be opening the solution because it's a bit too big. But we have the controls here, and we have all the controls that are available as part of WinUI. So the parts that are of interest to us are ComboBox, selector, which should be somewhere in there. If it's not there, it's probably in items control. But we're gonna search for it. So we have a bit of ComboBox here. So that's the UI test. Well, that's not exactly the right one. Do we have? Let's see. So it may be here. So those were probably tests. So let's search for C ComboBox, because I think it's called that way internally. C ComboBox, there you go. So we have the generated file, and we can find a few other pieces. There should be one that's called private or partial or something. So we have pager control. Maybe we can search from here. Combo C ComboBox. I'm gonna get there. So let's say partial. Is there a partial version of it? No. So we get a generated version of it. We get a ComboBox. We get a few ComboBox. We have the ComboBox helper here. We have a ComboBox G. We get a ComboBox item. We get ComboBox item partial, and we have the ComboBox partial here. Okay, so that's where most of the code from ComboBox is. But in our context, I don't think we have the inheritance set properly here. Let's see if we have SelectedIndex here, but it's probably part of yeah, we got SelectedIndex. That's the kind of the pieces of code that we get. So we got the apply template that's modifying a few things. Got a visual state that's using SelectedIndex. Got a prepare item for container override that's using it as well. So we have the SelectedIndex that's changing. So when the value is changing, then we need to do additional things like searching the index probably. What else do we have? We have a drop down open change. So this is for setting the opacity. We got the on selection changed. So that's one of the interesting parts. We have index restore or cancel. I'm not sure exactly what that one is. So probably when you press escape. You got to unopen, unclose, finish drop closing. Okay, so we don't have that much here. So we've rolled over now for the at the beginning of the file. So what's going to happen is that the rest of the code is going to be in selector. So we're going to go take a look at selector and see if we can get to the code that does the behavior that we're trying to get to. Great. So we're inside of adding the item, and then we can see that we have a second call again, and that's again in reset, but we have an item pending selection that's empty, so it's not going to help. I'm not sure exactly why we're already having this as empty, but probably we didn't have a pending item to be changed. So let's go take a look at what this particular item pending selection is doing. So we have our item pending selection. This is set when we have unselected item, selected item changed. But we're not doing it when the item source is changing. So maybe we should be manipulating this before. So we have a pending item selection. Okay, so we have selected item changed. But the thing is that the selected item is supposed to be set. Oh, okay, I see. So we can see that the item is being set, but because we don't have the item available, we can see that the value is not set properly. So the pending item selections cannot be set because we don't have the items list yet. Because the get items for the list is not set correctly. So what that would mean is that we should probably do something inside of that particular item source change, but by the looks of it, this is not going to be enough. because we have a value before the changing of the item source. But by the looks of it, we're not going to be able to handle it properly because we're setting it as a pending item selection here. So maybe we should be having a pending item pending index, maybe. Let's go see in selector what we have in WinUI. Let's see if we can pick their brains here. Gabriel is saying that he's loving the playlists, live coding, and Uno Tech Bites. Well, glad you like it. I'm pretty sure that the team is gonna be enjoying your comment, and Sasha, who's probably choosing the the soundtracks there. Upvote and put likes on the videos if you find them interesting. We definitely have some more coming up. And if you want to take a look at particular things during this stream, live, that's no problem at all. It's I'm just going through the selector content here, but if there's anything else that we can take a look at, just don't hesitate. So selector, we're gonna go to see what selector does. So we got selector bar. This looks like a new control. I don't know what that control does. So we get selector.g.cs, we get selector partial. So that one is probably huge. We can see the size of the, yeah, it's large, all right, but not that much. Okay, so if we search for selected index, we have old selected index. We got selected index change. That one is interesting. So we're avoiding recursion. So that's interesting. If we're doing initialization, not doing anything. If we have, oh, okay, that's interesting. So if new value is above 1 and below n count, that's only if we have SP item. So SP item is most likely empty if we're setting the value. So that means that we're not going to get. So Dan, you got bored of working through issues with Visual Studio. Well, maybe. Yeah, well, we're working on the next version of Uno, and we're battling with Visual Studio pretty hard. But I hope you're gonna like what we're gonna be releasing. This is gonna be awesome. Okay, so we got our new value that's set, and we can see that we're having the value. So in here, RSP item, the count is 0, so that means that we're setting the value to something else. We're out of range true, undo change true. Yes, we're all battling with Visual Studio. Yeah, VS Code is a little bit better, to be honest. The fact that we're handling everything end to end is particularly interesting. I mean, VS Code is pretty much doing nothing with regards to how the IDE functions. So if something breaks, it's pretty much our fault, not necessarily Visual Studio's fault. Okay, so we have undo the change if required because we're out of range. We're not modifying selected items. That is interesting. And we're saying that we're out of range. And because we're out of range, we're setting the value as selected index value set for items available. You need to get your monster working with VS Code. It's actually quite interesting because we've discovered something that may be of interest to you, where it's going to be something in 5.2 that may simplify large solutions that are cross-targeting using Uno. So we'll see what we can get to. Ping me back again when 5.2 is out. It may be of interest to you. Okay, so we know that we're out of range because we have undo change because the value was out of range. That's interesting. And then we have the selected index value set before items are available. Great. And where is that one used? It's used in items removed by the looks of it. No, it's not items removed. It's in items changed. Okay, so we're in items changed. And if the selected index value set before items available is different, is above or equal to 0, that means that we got our rat value. And we're setting the selected index to that value because we set it before. Okay, great. Maybe we can replicate that. And interestingly, we're not setting it to a value. So we're still reading it at the top where there's has pending selected index. So if there's no pending selected index, we're clearing the selection. Okay, so there's a specific behavior that says if the selected index, if there's a selected index, but we didn't set it before, we reset it to something probably 0 or the first one I would guess. Get num item selected. So it's getting to the selected index count. Probably multi-selection. Okay, so it's unselecting everything. Okay, so it's getting to all the items that are part of the selector and unselecting them. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so it's never unset for what I can see. It's never unset because, yeah, it's never unset. Okay, so we can probably replicate that behavior. So there are multiple things here. There's that behavior of selected. So let's pick up the first one. The first one being that if we're inside of selected index change, we're going to be not launching Visual Studio. Okay, so selected items changed. So selected item change, selected index changed. It's probably over top. Selected index changed. There you go. Selected index changed. Okay, in this one we have pretty much nothing. We're manipulating the selected item, but we're trying to figure out if the new selected item is valid. If it's not valid, that means that we pretty much can't do anything here. So we're moving to current position. That's not helpful. Selected index path. That one is probably. So we are rereading the selected index. That's probably a performance issue here. And we're determining if we need to raise the selection. So taking a look at what we had here, we said that if we're outside of the bounds, pretty much because we can't find the item that's inside. So that would be if the new selected item is null, then we're going to be storing the m selected value to the new index. So that would be the selected index. So we're repeating basically the value, we're repeating what we had here. It's actually quite interesting. So there's another behavior here that resets the value. We probably don't need that yet, but we're probably going to have to implement that at some point. Saying that if you're setting a value to something else that's not set properly, let's say you're setting a value to something else that is not available, then the value needs to be reset, and then we set it once the items are available. That's probably the back and forth that we need to do there. I see McNets has joined. Thanks for joining. We're talking about ComboBox and selected item and selected index, and trying to replicate a behavior that we have in the ComboBox. So, if you're wondering, one of the things that we're not doing yet is importing the code for selector and most of what's inside at this time. And one of the reasons for this is that selector is linked to a lot of list view, and list view is something that has a deep integration on iOS and Android. And if we were to pull out selector or kind of import most of the code that's available inside of WinUI, we would have a lot of work to do. So we're kind of delaying that a bit for now, trying to figure out if there's a better way to do that. But we're probably going to have to do it at some point and import the code from selector to get the exact same behavior. So if we're out of range, that is something that we need to do. And so we are going to be generating a field for this one, which should be available here. I guess that should be -1 by default. So it's not about making the selected index visible. It's about making sure that you can set the selected index before the item source has been set. And so that the reflection in the items, the selected items and the selected values are set properly. Okay, so we have our selected items set properly here. Now, what we need to do is basically replicate in the items changed. Replicate in the items change the original behavior. So we can see that there was a reset that was performed if the items, before items was available. So that's probably something that we don't do yet, but we're going to take a look. But the second part is about resetting the putting the selected index at the right place. So at the end of the selection change, we're going to be resetting the value at the right location. So one of the things that we had before was that in try reset something. So that's not the one. Let me try to find that one. So try reset something. I think it was called. No. Reset index if needed. Not the one. Okay, that's the reset index if needed. So we can see that the M pending item selection is not the right one, or at least not in that context. Maybe we're gonna have a special behavior that we need to include there, but that's not what we need. So I'm gonna say that if M selected index set before being available equals -1, then we actually do a reset. Otherwise, we don't do it. So let's try and see if we get something that works. So the other part is that if we set the item source, we're supposed to be on item source changed. We're supposed to be resetting the selection if we are in a multi-selection. It's probably something that we're going to have to do somewhere in there at the top. Not sure exactly where, but we're going to have to do it if we want to replicate that behavior. So we're going to take a look at that afterwards. Okay, so it's still failing, and it says expected -1. Okay, so we can see that it's still doing -1, so probably we're missing another piece here. Okay, so we have still our first invocation that has the right value. And for the second one, we still have something that resets the selected index. So do we have... We can see that our M selected index value is not set. So that means that we're not going through here, maybe. So let's retry our test. Oh, that's interesting. Okay, so we see that the unselected index changed was set properly. But we're still resetting it because, okay, so we're setting it properly, so that's fine. On items changed. Vector items changed. Item source changed. No, that's not the one. Okay, so we're already managing the selection properly inside of on item source changed. By the looks of it, we're just going back and forth and doing it in collection change here. So it looks like we're resetting the value. We're resetting the value completely incorrectly, probably because we're doing it as a blanket statement. We're missing a condition, so we're resetting it here. That is the first call, I think. Yes, this is the first call. And the second call is done. The second call is done from try. Oh, that is different. Okay, so it's not done by refresh, it's done by the try set. Okay, so it's done from this part, the try subscribe to current changed. Feels like we're doing it incorrectly in that context. It's not the fact that we're calling the method for the reset, it's the fact that we're just doing it incorrectly at that location. Let's try to find why that piece of code was added specifically here. Feels incorrect. So we're going to blame a little bit and see where that code is coming from. Okay, so we have a change with Martin. Okay, so that was done for pretty much doing what we're looking at. But there's no test around it, so maybe there is for the PR that is associated to that particular change. So let's go search for that. And if we go to Uno, if we search for some code, maybe we can get to something that's interesting. Okay, so if we take one commit, it comes from a PR. This particular PR, is there a test? Yes, there's a test. It's a runtime test though, but still is interesting. We can probably copy and paste that to our test so that we can run it properly. Okay, so there's a, okay, so that was actually fixed. Okay, great. So let's take all of this and let's run them as part of our test suite. And what we're going to do is we're going to be removing that particular reset and see if it breaks the test that we had included originally. Okay, so this test does not need to be ignored. And we're going to try to see if we get anything that breaks on that side. So we are resetting it while we're trying to subscribe to current change. It's probably incorrect. And we're calling that method from two locations. Maybe there's one that needs it, but not the other. So we're going to try to figure out if there's a condition that we can add to avoid that particular behavior. Okay, so we still have one test that is failing, and all the others are still working. So that is good. So what Martin changed is still working while we're modifying the selected index. So that is correct. We're still going to go take a look at why that was changed originally and why that why that line was added originally. But at least that is working for the tests that were added specifically for that change. But our test is still not passing, so that means that we have another behavior that's incorrect. Okay, so great. Now we're passing in selection change only once, which is what we wanted to have. But we set the selected index to 0 originally, and now we set it to 2. It's actually some interesting tests. So we're going to set it to that value and make the code pass, make the test pass for now. So okay, so now the test is passing. So now we can make a second one for out of bounds, just to make sure. We're gonna have to test with WinUI what it actually does, because I don't know. I don't recall. So let's say we have 4 items and we set it to 10. What do we get? And we're gonna try that. We're gonna try that out in WinUI and see what WinUI does. Okay, so it's failing and it says that expected is 2 and the actual is -1. So it means that there's no selection. It may be right, but let's go figure it out. So we're going to create a new app for WinUI and just go and test it out. So I don't know if I have the WinUI templates. Probably don't. So let's just create a Uno platform app. Probably don't have the, I don't think I have the extension installed on that instance. I'm probably gonna have to do that. Let's actually do it from the other instance here. So I was using the preview version. I don't have everything installed in that preview version. So we're going to try it here. So this is the app one, and we're going to be basically copy pasting what we have in that particular test. We're going to try to figure out if we have anything that makes sense. So we can probably import the asserts. Let's see what. Yeah, MS test works. And we're going to run the app and see what we get. So let's run it unpackaged. And let's see what we get. Oh, yes. Well, let's go for package then. So package unpackage is something that we fixed in Uno, but inside of the WinApp SDK template, it's not working by default. So we got a failure, expected 1, actual 0. And what is that for? Let's retry. I'm not sure exactly what I'm looking for. Maybe that selection changes is incorrect. It's just probably right. Okay, so we got selection change as 0. We're setting the selected index. Oh, it's set to -1. Okay, so if you're selecting it from the outside, it's coerced to be -1. That's interesting. So that is interesting. So we saw in the coerce code that was not supposed to be changing the item, the selected index, if the selection is incorrect. So that's pretty much what we're doing here. But I'm pretty sure there's something that we can do here. So this is probably doing, and it's probably something that we can go take a look at. But when you're in that particular context, when we're setting 10 to selected index, it's going to be setting the M selected index set before item source is set. And then when you set the item source, it will actually set the selected index properly if it's part of the new selection. So if we were to set it to 2, for instance, then we would probably be having the selection change count to be set to the right value. But let's check that out. Sorry about that. So we have the selected index set to 2, and we have the selection change count set to 1, which is because we went through the event. Okay, so we have the right context here. So if we go back to our behavior here, this particular test should be failing now still, because our selection change count should be set to 0, because with the selected index is out of bounds from the item source, so it should be not setting anything. So let's see if we have that particular, if that test passes as a result. It's not. Expected 1 and is 0. Oh yes, we're expecting it to be 0, of course. Okay, so now the test is going to be passing. So we have the right behavior here. We're able to set the selected index before setting the item source, and we're not resetting the value when we're setting it back. That's fine. And we know that if we set it out of bounds, it's going to be the right value. We know that it's the selected index is indeed set to -1. We can actually probably validate it twice, because in here we're setting it to the wrong value, and then it's actually something that's interesting. So I don't know if we're doing this, because you saw that if we try to set a selected index before the item source is set, then the selected index value, regardless of the fact that we set 2, it's not supposed to be the right value. So let's see if we have the right behavior here. So regardless of the fact that we set 2, we should be having -1. And once we set the item source, we should be having 2. And that's exactly what's happening. So we're storing temporarily the value of the selected index and setting it to the right value afterwards. So that's pretty good. Great. So we know that this is working properly now, and probably have fixed the issue, which means that we've removed a piece of code that was not supposed to be called. Now, what we don't know, and I'm wondering also if we still need that part. Let's see if we actually do need that part. I'm going to be rerunning the tests again, see if we have something of interest. So the change that we made is the fact that we've commented out the reset if needed at that location. The thing is that that particular piece was added for a reason, and we can see that. So if I not that. If I come back to here, and I go again to the plane and see what we wrote at that time. Oh, okay. So this is a local change. So we have to wait for the build to finish. So the build finished, and the build is still passing. So that means that we don't need the other change. So that's good. Yes, the git blame on VS Code is pretty nice. That's for sure. So we're going to be blaming again and see if there's anything associated to that change that was required. So the commit in here. So let's actually go back to the original PR. So the original PR was doing coercion here. And the previous change that was done at that location was that we were resetting the selected index at that time. But the thing is that we don't know why it was done originally. So maybe we don't need that at all. So we could probably go back again and try to find out why that particular piece of code was there. Let's see if I take the commit. Did that change? Yes. There's a previous commit. So maybe I can do this one and go take a look at the tree at that time. So that was, no, that's not given ComboBox that I want. It's the other. Well, actually, we can go take a look at the files at that time. That will do. But we need to go at the, need to go to selector.cs. In selected.cs, we said that it's inside try. I don't remember. So the particular change was inside of it's in selector, and it's in try subscribe to current change something. Okay, so in try current change, so we can see here that it was set to selected -1. So if we blame for that line, okay, so it's very old behavior. And it's it says it's my fault. It's not my fault, but it was done in a private source at the time, 6 years ago. We're probably around 7. So we're getting close to 7 years now. So I don't know. I don't know why that particular selected index was set to -1. What we could try to do, because the thing is that that's particularly interesting. We're setting it to the current position of the. Yes. Well, yeah, look at my name. Yeah, it's my name. So the problem is that it's the it's all the sources at once. So I'm just trying to find the actual author of this, trying to figure out where that comes from. So the interesting thing is that if we're doing it for a current change, we're doing it for a collection view. But if we're not in collection view, we're setting it to something else. It's kind of like we're having a collection, setting it to collection view that has a selection change that has a collection tracking, and then we're setting the target to something else, and then at that point the value is incorrect. So we could probably let's try to make a test for that one. So in ComboBox, we're going to be creating a test that does that sets to a collection view and then resets it back to something else, and see if we manage it properly. Okay. Selected item and collection view, then array. So we can we don't need to set the selected index, at least for starting, and then we need to make a collection view source. And then for the collection view source, we need to set there's the items path here. We can set the source here to, we can set it to a different set of strings. So let's say string 1 CV. So it's set for collection view. So then we have the CVS, and then we can set it to view, which is the iCollection view. So that action view is going to be setting it to whatever the selected value source is. So if you have the selected index here, or is it not here? I don't remember. Maybe it's on the view directly. No, it's not here. I don't recall. So we have set selection. There's no selection here. Could be directly under source, but I don't see it. Okay, so because it's not an I collection, so I'm sorry, it's on view. I was searching for it. So selected. No, it's not unselected. What's an I collection view? I don't remember. We get moved to current position. Okay, so that's set directly. Current position. That's interesting. So if we go back to selector, selected into current position. Okay, so that's current position. So I was looking at the right one. So current position could be, say, 2, for instance. Okay, so it's not that. It's probably a function move current to. First, last, move to position. Okay, so let's set it to 2. Okay, so that's the right one. So then if we run this, we should be having the selected index to 2, and with the selection change count maybe set to 1. Don't know. Okay, let's see what we get for this one. Yes. Yeah, blame is interesting when you're in Azure DevOps, or should I say Team Foundation server, or what is it? What was it before teamfoundation.net? I think it was that. I think it was called it teamfoundation.net at some point. Or maybe serve. I don't know. I don't recall. Does any of you know the original name of Team Foundation server? I think it was not called that way. It was what Team Server, or I don't recall. Okay, so we have. Okay, so that runs. So we have the selection change that was set to the right value. We have the selected index that was set to the right value. Now, what we do have now is to set the item source to something else while not changing the selected index. So let's see. Yeah, there was Visual Studio Online. That's true. That one was interesting. Okay, so in the item source, now we set it back to items. Then we're going to try to figure out what we get. So in our context, we have. So my guess would be that we should still be having selected items to set to 2, but selection change should still be set to 1. So let's see what we get. But in the meantime, we're going to go and take that piece of code and put it into our WinUI app and see what we get. Okay, so we expected 2, and it's set to -1. Okay. So it looks like we are resetting in Uno. We're resetting the value, but maybe that's incorrect. So we can figure out if Windows does it the same way. So we get a selected index that's set to -1. That's expected. We're moving to position 2. Entra. It's called Entra. Azure AD is called Entra. Yeah, Entra and Entra ID. So we set the value. Selected index is set to 2. Our selected change is the right one, and then we set the item index, and then okay, so we have the right value. So we know that if you set the item source again to something else, then we get the selection change is completely reset, which is what we wanted to have, and then the selection change count is set to 2 because we set it back to -1. So that's expected. Okay. So the original behavior that we need is -1 in that context. And the selection change count is supposed to be 2. But that means that we got the right value. We got the right behavior here. That means also that because we're going through that particular assignation, that means that we're going through, and we're going to test that right away. That means that we're going through our selector changed code here, and the reset if needed. Is it still working? See that we got the reset still. Okay, so we have one failed. One failed, and it's probably the original test that we added. I don't know which one that is. Yeah, okay, so the pre-selected is failing again because we reverted the change for the selector here. So this is not needed. And we should be going through that piece specifically in our new test when we're invoking that method. So we're gonna see if we get to that part. Actually, I'm gonna run it first and see if it runs properly. I would think it does, but it's just to be sure. Yeah, thinking about the Entra AD or Entra ID. I'm not even sure what that means. You know, is it something that that is of a particular important significance in English? I'm not sure. But definitely marketing has gone through this. Okay, so the test is passing, so that's good. Now we're gonna figure out if we're going through the right place. Okay, so we're going through the selected items here, and if we go into that line, it doesn't do anything, and that's not good. We should have gone through. Oh, it's because I didn't put a breakpoint. That's why. So let's try again. Let's move the cursor and we try again. Okay, so we're setting the item, and do we get to? Okay, so we're going through the collection view subscription, which was set to a serial which was set to an anonymous disposable that was created just above. And so we're canceling the subscription to current change of the collection view that was there before. And we're not resetting the index because it's not needed. And we get a test that passes. Okay, so we're good. So by the looks of it, it looks like that line was not needed, and it was something that was there before, for a very long time. Probably it was set because we had issues with the coercion that was not supported at the time. They were a very long time ago, and now we do have coercion supported, so probably don't need all those changes that we had before. So probably remove that part, and we can probably remove that part as well because it's not needed. So we just need to have the piece that we need to remove. We just need that line over there that resets, that avoids to reset the index if not needed. So just as a last command for that stream, going to be re-executing all the tests for that file, and we should be good to go. There we have it. And the tests are saying what? Suspense. 12 are running. Great. So we're good. So that's it for today. I hope you learned a little bit about what we're doing, and taking a look at the WinUI sources, trying to to get that running. And well, thanks Andres. You probably reviewed it live while I was coding it, so that's good. That's time well spent. So that's it, and until next week, happy coding. Bye for now.